be the Eyeshadow Palette Tag Part 2 video. This tag was created by Allie, Glines, and Samantha March, and I've been seeing this tag go around on YouTube again quite a bit, and I've been watching last night was just eyeshadow palette tag videos from all of my favorite YouTubers. So I decided I wanted to do this video myself. I did do the first eyeshadow palette tag last year, so I kind of wanted to do this one because I wanted to see if some of my answers changed, and they definitely did. But I mean, these are obviously different questions than the first one. So if you guys want to do this tag yourself, I will leave the questions linked. I will leave the questions down below. Hopefully I can find a link of them, or I can just list them in the description box. So let's just go ahead and get started. There's 10 questions in this tag, and I will leave Samantha March's and Allie Glines video in the description box as well. So the first question is all-time favorite palette, and I think you guys know what my all-time favorite palette is. I never shut up about this palette. I'm just gonna talk about it for a little bit, but I honestly still, I mean, there's still amazing formulas out there, and there's so many good palettes that I tried last year, but this is still my all-time favorite palette, and this is the ColourPop and Kathleen Light's So Jaded eyeshadow palette. This is probably the only palette that might be the same answer from the first video than it is in the second video, because I really cannot do a video talking about eyeshadow palettes without talking about this palette, because it's just my favorite palette that ColourPop has ever done. I really am not a huge fan of their 30 pan palettes. I honestly think all the 30 pan palettes that came out after this palette were pretty boring, but this one was just such... Okay, well that like totally popped out of the pan. I actually had that problem before with this shade, and this is the Super Shock shade in here, and this is actually one of my all-time favorite Super Shock shades. So I'm just gonna hold the palette like this really quick so you guys can see what it looks like. I'm sorry that that came out. That actually has happened to me before with the Sweet Talk palette. I think the other Super Shock shade that was in there came out of the palette. So they could press those shades a little bit better. But as you guys can see, I've used this palette a shit ton. I love it so much. I have significant dips in a lot of the shades. Like I said, I was gonna, well actually I haven't said this in this video yet, but I was going to skip over this palette when I first saw it. I was like, I don't need it, but I was like, who am I kidding? I was like, I pick up every collab palette that Kathleen Lights has done with ColourPop, because she just comes out with such gorgeous color stories, and I feel like really ColourPop is stuck in a rut right now with their 30 pan palettes, that this one was just like so innovative and different and beautiful. And if you ask a lot of people what their all-time favorite ColourPop palette is, most people say this one or the Going Coconuts palette, which is my all-time favorite neutral palette. I wish that was one of the questions in here, but if I had to pick an all-time favorite, I would definitely say this one. I could take this anywhere with me and be satisfied with it. I would take this all the time when I used to visit my best friend. I would take this when I was visiting anybody, because I knew if I took this palette and I didn't have room to take another palette, this was the only palette I needed. This is like, if I had no other palettes in my collection, then obviously this would be the palette that I kept. So yeah, I love this palette so much, and again, I love everything about this palette. I'm sorry you can't get your hands on it anymore, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. I already raved about it enough. I just love the finishes in here. I absolutely love the matte shades in here. They all just pair so well with all of the shimmers in here, and the shimmers are stunning. I really think after this palette came out, they really stepped up their shimmer formula, and the shimmer formula in here is stunning. It's just so metallic and wet looking. Pearl's like one of my all-time favorite inner corner highlights. My Precious is like my favorite brow bone highlight. There's just so much you can do with this palette. Smoky Quartz is such a gorgeous lid shade. They're all so beautiful, and there's so much you can do with this palette. Peridot's like my all-time favorite ColourPop shimmer. And it just so happened to be an August baby, so that just so happens to be my birthstone. But honestly, this shimmer is absolutely outer worldly. It's amazing. And Emerald's gorgeous too. I love this palette, so I'm not going to rave about it anymore. Honestly, once you try it and use it in person, you'll understand why this palette is so loved. I really just think the formula is so amazing in this palette, and I really think they just did a wonderful job. I could also say this is my favorite collab palette as well, but I obviously have a different answer for that. But that would probably be a favorite collab as well. But yeah, love this palette so much. So yeah, that is number 1. Okay, number 2, fell in love with this brand. Love it so much. So new favorite. So that would have to be the Unearthly Cosmetics Fall Magic Palette. Oh my god, this palette is so beautiful. I cannot believe it took me so long to try Unearthly Cosmetics. They used to be called Alien Cosmetics. Now they had changed their name. But this one still says Alien Cosmetics on it. I believe that this was the last palette that had the Alien Cosmetics on it. I think their Christmas launch had Unearthly Cosmetics, if I'm not, I might be wrong about that, but anyway, this palette is just stunning. The color story is just so gorgeous. I think that this is such a well thought out color story. I absolutely love the rich tone mattes in here, and the shimmers are just so sparkly and beautiful. Some of these shift amazing like duochrome shades, like Leaves shifts like green to purple to pink, and then Change shifts from like gold to purple because it's supposed to be like the changing of the leaves. This color, Autumn, is just such a gorgeous like tangerine metallic, and they're just all just so beautiful, and the mattes blend like a dream. They're super pigmented, super soft, super beautiful. I can't say enough about this brand. I think that their formula is wonderful, and I just thought that this color story was so beautiful that I'm like, I cannot skip over this palette. I think it's so gorgeous. So I would definitely say that a new favorite would be just Alien Cosmetics in general. I kind of want to try some other stuff from them this year. So, but yeah, I absolutely love this palette. I just got a spam phone call, and I think it's gorgeous. Okay, number 3, keep for the memories. So I have a bunch of palettes that I keep for the memories. I am pretty good at decluttering palettes, but there are, of course, a few palettes that I actually don't even use anymore that I just keep on my desk shelves as palettes that I just keep for the memories, but they're just too old at this point. So the one I would have to say for keep for the memories would be my very first high-end eyeshadow palette, and basically my first eyeshadow palette in general. I mean, there is one that I could say, but this one was really my start of my makeup obsession and my makeup collecting and just falling in love with makeup. I mean, I've always had a love for makeup, but this is really what started my makeup collecting and just started like my YouTube channel and my whole experience of meeting new people on YouTube. And this is the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. I have to say this one because I had never even experienced the Naked 1 palette. I didn't even pick up this palette, I believe, until like 2017. So I've only been collecting makeup for a few years, since I was 27. So almost 7 years ago. And my boyfriend got this for me for Christmas of, I think, December, maybe 2016. So yeah. So 2017 would be my first full year, like really like collecting makeup. So this was my very first palette, and I just, asked my boyfriend one year for Christmas. He was like, what do you want? And I was like, can you just get me like a couple of eyeshadow palettes? Like, I really just want to start getting into makeup more. And I saw this palette, and this is when I first discovered the Naked line in general. I didn't even know the Naked palette existed before I saw this palette. And I think it was when I first started watching YouTube and makeup tutorials and stuff like that. I think this was around the time where this palette had come out. I'm not sure if it had come out earlier than that. It probably did. But this palette was still relatively new at the time, because I remember that I picked up the Naked Heat palette when it came out. So this palette was out obviously before that, and I had it for I think at least a year before the Naked Heat came out. It's just such a gorgeous palette, and honestly, this formula was so good for the time. I mean, yes, Urban Decay is expensive, so that's why I asked my boyfriend to pick this up for me. And then I also asked him to get me the electric palette from Urban Decay, which is another palette I keep for the memories. But I would have to say this one really started my love for neutral eyeshadow palettes. And this is what started it all. This was really my first neutral palette in my collection. And yeah, I just love it so much. So there was no way I couldn't mention this palette. I used this palette every day until I got the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palettes. But this was my everyday palette for a good like 3 months. This is all I would use. And I just thought the colors were so stunning. It's still a beautiful color story and one of the most stunning like blushy toned palettes out there still, because honestly, like for some reason brands don't really make like palettes like too blushy toned. I really don't know why. But that palette's beautiful. I think that's their best naked palette when it comes to a neutral palette, because they're all neutral, but that one I love out of the 3. The Naked 3 is definitely my favorite. Okay, number 4, underrated palette. And I would have to say this palette from ColourPop, because I really think that this is one of their best palettes they've done since the So Jaded palette. And again, I was going to skip over this palette, and I really just think that this palette does not get enough love, but it really is a stunner. And this is the ColourPop Lust for Dusk palette. Now, this was my number 1 ColourPop palette of the year of 2021. So if you guys wanted to check out my ColourPop ranking, just so you know, this one's number 1, but that video's been out for a month already. But if you wanted to check it out and see my thoughts on all the palettes I tried in 2021 from ColourPop, you can go check out that video. So I would definitely say that this is the most underrated palette that ColourPop has in their line. I just think that this palette is so stunning. Some of these mattes are just so beautiful with the shimmers in here, and I feel like there's so many beautiful different directions that you can go in this palette. You can go really warm tone, you can go pinker tone, you can go cooler tone with these beautiful like grayish, almost purpley grays down here, and then you have these orangey tones and you have these pinkish tones. They're all just so beautiful. But the stars of the show in this palette are the shimmers. I've never tried like this sparkly metallic formula from ColourPop before, and I wish that they would do this more, because these shades really do just sparkle on your lid, and they just draw your eyes directly to your lid shade, and they just look so stunning on the lid and really are just the star of the show when you use this palette. So I am going to keep on talking about this palette and keep on recommending it, because I say if someone wants to try out ColourPop, but they want to look for something a little bit different than a neutral palette, this is your guy. I think that this would be a perfect palette for you if you're looking for a little twist on neutrals, but there's still like muted tones in here, but you can like kind of amp it up a little bit, and you can create some really beautiful like sultry, sexy looks for nighttime, but you can also create some beautiful colors for daytime. And I really wish they would do this 16 pan format more often, because this ends up being like one of my favorites. So I absolutely love this palette. Okay, next question. I don't know if I actually pulled this palette. I don't know if I actually... Yeah, hold on. Let me see. Okay, so this is a funny answer. So the next question is, I think I already said, not a favorite but can't get rid of. I can't get rid of this palette because 1, it's damaged, and 2, I spent a lot of money on this palette. So I don't necessarily want to sell it, but I honestly can't because one of the shadows is broken. And this is the Viseart Warm Neutrals palette. Now, I remember when Viseart was like this is the Warm Matte palette, sorry. I remember that this was such a craze on YouTube when Viseart was really making its waves and its rounds on YouTube. A few years back, everybody was raving about Viseart and how amazing the formula was. So I really just wanted to try the formula for myself. I saved up to get this palette during one of the Sephora VIB sales, I think like back in like 2018 or something, and I tried it and I actually really, really loved it. But is it worth $75? No, I think that this is way overpriced. And honestly, I really don't use all matte palettes anymore, but I swear if I needed something that I don't have in my collection, this would be the palette. But since I have so many other palettes now at this point, I don't ever use this palette anymore. And I'm just so upset that this shade ended up shattering, because after that, I probably didn't use it as much as I used to. I really liked this formula, and the reason why I can't get rid of it is just because it was so expensive. But it has made it through multiple declutters because I don't want to throw it out, because I feel like that's just a waste of money, but I don't use it, so it just sits in my drawer, because I'm like, I spent a lot of money on you, but at the same time, it's like, I'm never going to use it again. So it's a little bit difficult for me to get rid of this, but it's not a favorite of mine. I definitely don't see this as an essential palette in my collection anymore. I don't think I even needed it when I picked it up, but this is when I used a lot of single shadows, like from the Super Shock shadows, from ColourPop, or like other single shadows, before I really started building my collection more. And I have like 3 palettes of single shadows that I don't really use anymore. I have like one of them over here, which is like my Makeup Geek and like my ColourPop that I used to like pop on my lids when I used this as the mattes, but now I really just don't use these anymore. So yeah, so it would definitely be that one. So number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6. Yeah, number 6 would be Fave Collab, and unfortunately this collaboration isn't available anymore, but I just love this collaboration so much that there was no way I couldn't mention this as my favorite collab, and that would have to be the Oden's Eye Legendary Diversa collection. I have been raving about this collection for a while. If you didn't get your hands on it, I am so sorry. But honestly, I was only going to pick up Tina's palette, which is the Fancy Face on YouTube, and this is the Hummingbird palette. But then I kept on staring at the other two, and I ended up loving these 2 more than the Hummingbird, but they're all phenomenal. I absolutely love them. I'm not going to go too much in depth about them because unfortunately you can't get your hands on them anymore. But this is the Hummingbird palette from the Fancy Face. It is absolutely stunning. There are some gorgeous shimmers in here. This is a very shimmer heavy palette because it's supposed to be a companion palette to other palettes that you have in your collection. So you can pop on one of these shades to really amp up your look. You can pop it over another shimmer that's not really giving you a lot of pigment and you want something to really pop. Or you can use these mattes to deepen up the outer corners for other palettes, and it really is a beautiful companion palette. I just don't really use companion palettes all that often, but it's a stunner. And then we have the Giant Wolves palette by Annette's Makeup Corner. This is just a stunning palette, and I've been reaching for this quite a bit because I think that this is such a beautiful winter color story. So I've been using this so much since I got it, and I absolutely love it. I love these grungy matte tones, and the shimmers are just phenomenal in this palette. They're just blinding and beautiful, and their matte formula is just, it's like, it's something else. There's nothing like it, to be honest. It's just so pigmented, but they blend out so beautifully and they look gorgeous on the eyes. And then the shimmer just like is blinding, so like they're just beautiful. And then the last one is the Red Dragon palette by Judy. And this is what it looks like again. And the artwork on these are absolutely stunning. Oh my god, did you guys see the new Angelica Nyquist one? 100% getting that. Everybody already knew it was Angelica Nyquist's. But it looks absolutely stunning. So this is the last palette in the Legendary Diversa collection of the first collaboration that came out. And again, this palette is beautiful. This is also a palette I didn't expect to love so much, so I could also say that. I mean, I already knew it was going to be amazing, but I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I do. It's stunning. The multi-chromes in these palettes are beautiful. Like I've said a million times, Luna is my favorite shade in the whole collection. It's a gorgeous, multi-dimensional multi-chrome. It's amazing. And the mattes in here are phenomenal, richly pigmented, and the shimmers are just sparkly and beautiful. I love pulling this palette to deepen up the other 2 palettes. If I decide to use those palettes and I need like a matte brown, I always use this one. So they're also really beautiful to use all 3 of them together, and that's why I ended up picking up all 3, because I'm like, I feel like I would use all 3 together quite a bit, and I have done that quite a few times with these, and it's just a way for me to use all of them when I can. So that is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7, 2021 favorite. So again, if you guys want to see me ranking all of the palettes that I tried in 2021 that were not ColourPop, because I made my own ranking video for ColourPop, then you can go check that out. It's ranking all my eyeshadow palettes I tried in 2021. There's a part 2 and a part 1 and a part 2 if you guys want to check that out. But my 2021 favorite palette was the Beauty Bay 16 color Fiery palette. Now, Beauty Bay is just, again, Beauty Bay, BH Cosmetics, and ColourPop are like my 3 all-time favorite affordable formulas. But this was definitely my favorite palette that I tried in 2021 that was not ColourPop. Again, the Luster Dusk was my other 2021 favorite, but I used both of them constantly. And I just absolutely love this palette. If I need something warm neutral, if I want something that's going to be richly pigmented, if I want something that's going to be super shimmery and beautiful, their shimmers are phenomenal. Their mattes blend like a dream. They are so easy to blend. They're pigmented. They're soft and beautiful. And I absolutely have just fallen in love with the Beauty Bay formula. And I think a lot of us have. And yeah, I just absolutely love this palette. There's really not too much that I need to say about this palette. It's just beautiful and bronzy and warm tone, and it's just beautiful. So absolutely love this palette as well. Okay, I keep on losing count. I'm just going to say next question. The next question is didn't expect to love. I wasn't going to rave about the Beauty Bay palette too much because you guys can see my full thoughts on these palettes in all of these ranking videos. I have first impressions on every single one of these palettes if you guys want to see those. And I also talk about all these palettes in like most of my favorites videos because I love all these palettes. So the next one is didn't expect to love. And this was a little hard for me to pick, but then I was like, oh, definitely this one. So this one would be the Moira Always on My Mind Sweet Series palette. This was the first palette that I've picked up in a long time that I did not watch reviews on before I picked it up. I just wanted to get it because I thought that the color story was beautiful, but I also thought that this collection from Moira was just so adorable that it looked like a box of chocolates, and I love that you take out like the insert like a box of chocolates, and this is the palette. Now, the only thing is that I wish that there was like one more shimmer in here, like a sparkly white shimmer, then this palette would have been perfect. But oh my god, their formula is so... This is also a very underrated palette as well, and Moira is an underrated brand in general. They really just got more notice because the blushes that they came out with last year kind of blew up on YouTube, and everybody was talking about those blushes. But not really that many people were talking about their eyeshadow palettes, and I think their eyeshadow formula is beautiful. Their mattes are beautiful and buttery, and their shimmers are like so pretty and pigmented. So if you guys want to try Moira, and also Moira is a pretty affordable brand, much more affordable than Oden's Eye, and I tried both of them around the same time, and I alternated in trying them out together. And I just think that I think that they're underrated, but I also did not expect to love the formula as much as I did. So yeah, that's why I wanted to say this palette from Moira would be definitely the answer to this question. I thought that was a perfect answer. Okay, number something. Palette that sparks joy. So this again was a little bit difficult for me to just answer one. So I'm just going to say 2 brands and like a certain series from a brand. So I would say definitely from ColourPop would be the ColourPop and Disney collabs. I just get so excited whenever they release a Disney collab, and they're just such stunning palettes. These were definitely by far their 2 best ones, so that's why I pulled the Midnight Masquerade palette and the Frozen palettes, because I just thought that these palettes were so beautiful. They are so beautifully designed, and the unique shape of this palette is just so pretty. And this is the Midnight Masquerade palette. It's just so pretty. The color story is gorgeous, and I used this palette so much when I first got it. I actually got this palette around almost the same time as the So Jaded palette, because this came out like 2 weeks after the So Jaded palette came out, and I ended up ordering this palette as well, because I was like, there is no way I can say no to this, because I collect the princess palettes that they come out with. I also have the It's a Princess Thing palette, and I just think they're all so beautiful, but this is definitely their best princess palette and one of their best Disney collabs to date. The shimmers in here are gorgeous, and I love that these mattes are so richly pigmented and deep and beautiful. They're just so pretty, and some of these shimmers are like really beautiful, like duochrome shades, and the pressed glitters are so pretty in here, but the gold shade and the green and this like peachy shimmer, oh my god, they're all just so stunning, and you can do so many gorgeous looks with this palette, and I've done so many beautiful looks with this. I absolutely love this palette. And then the other two, obviously, like I said, are the Disney Frozen 2 palettes. These also hold a special place in my heart because me and my best friend used to watch Frozen together all the time. I didn't see Frozen 2 until I went to Connecticut to go see it with her, because we told each other that we were both going to see it together. Actually, I think we both had seen it for the second time then. I think the first time I saw it with my friend Lisa and Becca, but the second time I went like a week later to make sure I went to Connecticut to see her so we could go see the movie together. So, and I also did buy her these two palettes for her birthday one year. So this one is the Anna palette. Again, just a stunning color story. I'm not going to go too much in depth into these because you can't, I don't know if you can get these anymore. I think they finally, but they keep the Disney palettes around like forever. I don't know why they keep them around so long. They really should discontinue them at this point. They've been out for like 2 years. Frozen 2 came out in like 2019. Like, they're really not relevant anymore, but this one is just one of their best 9 pans. It's absolutely stunning. I love that one. It's such a good color story. And then the Elsa one was, again, a palette I didn't really expect to really like that much. I'm not in love with this palette, but there's a lot that you can actually do with this palette that I didn't think that I really thought it was going to be hard for me to come up with looks with this palette, but it's beautiful. The shimmers in here are so pretty. This silver is amazing. The two reds are so richly pigmented. Just such a beautiful palette. So yeah, I would definitely say the Disney collabs are definitely the palettes that spark joy, and I just get so excited every time they release a Disney collab. I really wasn't too crazy about the ones they came out with last year. Meanwhile, I did pick up like, I think 3 of them. I picked up the Nightmare, the Tinkerbell, the Bambi, and the Lizzie McGuire, so I picked up 4. But I just thought they were so cute, and I collect almost all the Disney collabs, so. And then the other ones would be from Glamlight. Any palette that Glamlight decides to release, it is really hard to skip over their palettes because I am absolutely obsessed with the whole bakery food theme. I mean, I love baking in general. So I just think that their whole aesthetic, everything, the packaging down to the, packaging formula and presentation is all just such a fun experience to me. I know some people say it's a little gimmicky, but I absolutely love it. I love how these are both in like pie cases or like a donut box. And this is the pie palette, and I just love how it opens up. It's just so freaking adorable. I love how it looks like a cherry pie. I'm not obsessed with the color story of this one, but just the overall presentation and the thought process that they put into these palettes is why I love these so much. So that is the pie palette. And then the other one is the chocolate donut, which is probably my favorite palette from them because I was just dying for them to come out with a neutral palette. So this is the chocolate donut. And again, this is such an adorable, beautiful neutral palette. And I absolutely love it. And their pigmentation is beautiful. Their shimmers are gorgeous. The highlighter in this palette is just blinding. And yeah, so it's really hard to skip over Glamlight for me. So, okay. Number 9 is newest palette to my collection. So I actually have 2 answers to this question because I actually just got both of these palettes in the mail earlier today. I'm wearing one of them on my eyes right now, and the other one I haven't tried yet because obviously I don't have enough eyeballs to try both of them. But these are my two newest palettes to my collection. So the first one is the one I'm wearing on my eyes today, and that is the Gourmand Girls C'est L'Amour palette. I did use this in a live earlier today, but the live will obviously be up before this video is up. But I just tried this palette out for the first time today because, like I said, I just got it 3 hours ago. And it's super beautiful. But this is not untouched because I swatched it. And it's just gorgeous. So I can't wait to create more looks for you guys. So I'll just run through what I'm wearing real quick. I did a pretty easy look. So I used Creme de la Creme first as a transition. Then I darkened up the crease more with Rosé. And then I used Soirée to deepen up the crease. And then for the lid shade, I used the shade Oui all over my lid. And it's such a gorgeous, like, sparkly, beautiful, duochromy goodness. And then I used Feminine on the inner corners, and then I smudged a little bit of Rosé on the lower lash line, and that's my look. And I think that this is adorable. I love the imprints of the little like Paris and diamonds and G's and kisses. It's just, all of it is so beautiful. And this is a collab with Doodles by the Bunny and Gourmand Girls, and I'm just so happy for Christina, and this is such an awesome stellar collab, but also it's a new palette to me. So obviously I was going to say this one, and then the other one that just came in the mail today is also a new brand to me. I've never tried Nomad Cosmetics before, and the other palette is the Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge palette. So this is the newest palette from Nomad Cosmetics and also the newest palette to my collection. I did swatch it a little bit earlier today, but obviously I didn't use it yet. And I am super excited to try this palette out as well. It's absolutely stunning. I think the color story is beautiful. I love like the greens and the blues and the red tones and some of these murky, grungy tones and like these sparkly colors. The gold, of course, is beautiful. There's not too many like crease shades in here, but I really feel like you can do a lot with this palette, and I feel like it's a way for me to really just experiment with my makeup a little bit more. So I'm really excited to try this baby out. So that is my other newest palette to my collection. Okay, and then the last question is first palette I used in 2022. So just give me a second. And the last question is the first palette I used in 2022. I had to go back in a couple of my videos to see which one I actually tried the last week of December or the first week of January, and I found that the first palette I tried, it was either this one or the Limoncello palette, but it was the ColourPop Orchid Unite palette. And this palette was the newest palette to me that I had paid for from ColourPop, because Limoncello and the Plush Like Me I actually received free with my order because they were doing like a promo at the time where you could receive a free palette with like orders of $25 or more, and then you could receive 2 palettes with $40 or more. So this was the first palette I tried in 2022, and you guys know how much I ended up loving this palette. It's amazing. It's so richly pigmented, and if you're looking for a cheap alternative for like a berry tone palette, I think that this would be a beautiful option for you. So this just so happened to be the first palette I tried in 2022, or used in 2022, I mean. The first new palette I had tried in 2022 was the Adept Cosmetics Amunet New palette. But the first palette I used on January 1st, 2022 was the Orchid Unite palette, and it's absolutely stunning. And yeah, that is it, you guys. Those are all my answers to the eyeshadow palette Part 2 tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at CBW819 and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. Let me know if you guys if you do this tag, or if you don't. Leave your favorite palette in the comments below. Have you tried any of these favorites, and could you guess any of my answers? I would love to know. I love you guys. Bye.